Hello, I'm Dr. Kathleen Hall, and this is The Way I See It.
And my name is Bailey, like the Irish cream, and this is The Way I See It.
Hello, darling.
Hello. Glad to be here.
I'm glad to be here, too.
Darling.
So, I thought this would be an interesting topic. I just did a recent interview with a major pub, and it was all around the topic of, is mindfulness making us sick? And I thought, wow, that's, I do mindful living, I teach mindfulness, as you well know, and stress is my thing and all this other. And I thought, what are they talking about?
Seems to be contradictory.
Yeah. So, but I was intrigued, and I went, so what's the deal? And as the conversation went on, it was that a lot of people seem to be maybe beginning the practice of mindfulness or meditation, and they are having some abrupt, intense psychological ramifications of depression or anxiety disorders, or maybe even tendencies towards suicidal thoughts or PTSD. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was fascinating. I went, well, this is interesting. And so if you think about it, which I began to think about it, it really does make sense that we live, as you well know, in a very staccato, fast-paced world.
So true.
Filled with tons and tons of too much information, TMI. And we are geared now to consume everything in such a short block of time.
Right.
Short videos, short news clips. Everything that we do is very impatient. Rapid fire, very much so. Yeah. And so when someone comes into a class or listens to an app, some of these apps that get you really quiet, and for the first time in your life, you're silent and you're aware, mm-hmm. and you're sitting there. So all of your busyness or all of the habits and habitual behaviors that you've developed to not think about things, okay?
Right, yeah.
To capital N, capital O, capital T, or may I say repress, any of those words. Well, doesn't it make sense that when you get quiet and silent, that it's going to pop up? It's kind of like me cooking my vegetable soup. I love to cook. And when I turn it off and it quits bubbling, then it gets very quiet at the top, okay? But all those heavy vegetables are at the bottom. They're under there, baby.
Those
they
potatoes.
Haven't gone. Yeah, Hey, you got to watch out, baby.
Yeah,
for the
those
carrots
potatoes
and
will get you.
They will get you. They are down there lurking.
Yes.
The
Just
like
potatoes
Jaws.
of life.
Can we have a little Jaws music now?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just waiting to get you. So you have these people with issues, a lifetime of issues. So whether they got successful in some kind of accounting career or some kind of music or whatever career,
right?
They've just kind of gone faster and faster, and so all of a sudden they know something's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or they want something better in life. Maybe not necessarily wrong. That makes things bad or good and values them. Okay.
Right.
But maybe some cognitive dissonance, sadness, grief, whatever they're going through, unhappiness. And they go, oh, we've heard about this mindfulness. Let's go take a mindfulness pill. It looks pretty easy and simple. And I'll download one of those zillion of apps, and just go, I got this. I got my new BMW, got everything else. I'm just going to take this little mindfulness pill.
Right.
So what happens is, let me tell you about this mindful and meditation. You will get quiet, and you do become quite aware. And what bubbles up, just like in that soup, it's not like the soup I make where I choose to put in the carrots and the potatoes and the peas or whatever. Down lurking under there is a bunch of stuff that you didn't want to look at, which is why you went so fast, or why you went so quickly, or why you avoid the holidays with your family, or why you keep job jumping, or whatever issues you have, or drinking, or smoking, or drugs. There's a reason for the underbelly, or those vegetables sitting and resting at the bottom. But remember, they're still there, like you said about the potatoes. It's still there. And so here's where the challenge comes, is when people get quiet, you can also have not just minor disorders, you can have pretty significant disorders, whether it's a major depression, major anxiety disorder, PTSD. And this can happen from a rape that happened as a child. This can happen from a car wreck when you were younger. This can happen from a violent relationship, a myriad of problems, or just a diagnosable disease, manic depression, anything. And when you get quiet and still, guess what? These things are they will rise up.
Oh, yeah.
So that's why it's both and that.
I remember reading that.
Yeah.
I was like, both and. I love that.
Yeah, is that, and again, I'll tell a quick personal story. I was type A, smart, cute, you name it, married, 2 kids, dotted the I's, crossed the T's, cute little body in my St. John suit. Running around selling companies. I was rocking it, man, on the outside. And on the inside, I was noticing I was drinking a little more than usual, a little more scotch, a little more Stolies, a few more shots here and there. And not sleeping and getting skinnier and absolutely to almost a fever panic inside.
Like malnourished?
Not malnourished, but just inside knowing something was so wrong. And the worst part was when you look so right on the outside in this world we live in, it's like you're living 2 double lives I describe it as riding a bicycle with the chain off of it. And you keep going faster and faster, but you don't know the chain's off the bicycle.
Yeah, that's a good
and you're
metaphor.
Exhausted.
Yeah.
So anyway, something catastrophic happened, and I could not. It's a long story, which is for a whole nother show. But we happened to. I had the 2 kids, and a friend of ours. Their child had a baby at Grady, and the child had been abandoned. And so Jim and I offered to go pick up the baby, newborn, and we brought the baby home. It was a little boy. I got very attached to this child, obviously, and became like its mother. As a matter of fact, I became so attached, I actually got milk again. This is the true story.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, it was that much of a bondage attachment to the child. I didn't nurse it or anything, but still it was huge.
Wow.
And then what happened was
that's unreal.
The family came back in and something horrible happened, and we had to make some decisions on the child. Anyway, so I was left totally distraught, crazy, dysfunctional, paralyzed. Sure. Yeah, paralyzed. Yeah. And my neighbor across the street said, "Hey, why don't you come with me?" She said, just come with me. And I said, "Where?" And she said, "Just come." She said, "I'm going to this class." Didn't tell me what it was. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I go to this class, and it happens to be a meditation class. And so I sat there at the back and thought I was going to lose my frigging mind.
Because of the stillness?
Absolutely. Yeah. These people are sitting there looking like they have halos over their heads, right?
Right, and you have the weight of the world.
Exactly.
And you're just dying in silence.
And the more silence I got, the longer,
your
5 minutes to 10 minutes, exactly, my insides are going absolutely banana bonkers.
That's unreal.
But here's the key. There was a teacher, Wong Lo Sensei was at the front of the class, who was the teacher. Mm-hmm. And he was the most kind, gentle, loving human being, I don't know. And so for some reason sensed my anguish, Bailey, maybe the tears and the snot running out of my nose.
That's usually a good indicator.
Yeah, and hearing me in the silence, sobbing in the back. That could have been. Maybe he wasn't as enlightened in retrospect.
Yeah.
I thought it was some divine intervention, but maybe.
But maybe it was basic social cues. Yeah.
Oh, here we are.
Nevertheless, he approaches you. Yeah.
He approaches me. And so he touches me and just handed me this thing, wiped the tears off my face, and smiled, and was one of the most sat down beside me and sat right by me, which calmed me immediately. His presence, and said, "Everything will be all right. I promise you this." He said, "I promise you." And so anyway, he talked to me for a while, and so we went home that night, and I went home with Wanda, which was her real name. I didn't make that up.
Who, Wanda?
A Fish Called Wanda, one of my favorite movies, but we won't we won't go into A Fish Called Wanda. But
Yeah.
oh dear God, have you ever laughed so hard in your
I've
life?
never seen it
Oh my
before.
God. Oh my God,
I'll
you
look
have
it
to see
up.
it. It's
I'll
one
look
of
it
my
up.
favorites. Oh my
A Fish
God.
Called Wanda?
A Fish Called Wanda.
I'll look it
Oh
up.
my God. So anyway, excuse me.
Okay.
Wanda, I love you wherever you are. You saved my life. So anyway, then I didn't want to go back because I was terrified, but I wanted to go back. So here we go with the
Right.
struggle of psychological issues. I went back the next night. Next thing I knew, a week turned into 2 weeks, turned into a month, turned into 6 months, turned into a year, turned into 5 years, turned into many, many years.
Yeah.
Okay, in that, the grace of God was that I was in a big group of people. So there were intermediate meditators, there were beginners, advanced. So I had a support group,
Yeah.
right? So that when I had these horrendous memories come up of, my father killing, with a shotgun, killing my cat, or when I didn't do something or wore something wrong and he made me take off my clothes and burn them in front of me, this horrendous, horrendous childhood I survived, that when I got quiet, guess what came up? Things I had, all of that, things
Yeah.
I had repressed, and no matter how fast and successful I got and beautiful I got and everything I did, all those vegetables were still in the bottom of the pot.
Stewing.
But the cool thing about having a beautiful, loving teacher, number one. Two is this environment of different levels of meditators that have done it.
And the support that comes
And
with
the
that
support that comes with
environment.
that, exactly. It normalizes all this. Like when stuff came up, instead of being abnormal, do you see? It would be oh, expect it. Do you see? So then it shifted from victimization and re-victimization of, oh, Jesus, I can't handle this, to curiosity of wonder, W-O-N-D-E-R. As I wondered, W-A-N-D-E-R, as I wandered into meditation and all the mindfulness practices, the W-O-N-D-E-R, the healing happened, because I knew that the truth was coming out and some part of my psyche and my soul was being healed in this community.
Right.
So anyway, fast forward, as you well know, I left the Wall Street job. I left the 104th floor of the World Trade Center and my busy life, and really got into it, obviously, big time.
Yeah.
And went to the Dalai Lama. I met him at Emory. He became my teacher. Subsequently, Thich Nhat Hanh, who is the very infamous South Vietnamese monk who was a collaborator with Martin Luther King Jr. And actually, Martin Luther King Jr. nominated him, I believe, or wanted to nominate him for a Nobel Prize. And so, I've been a student of his for many years. So, I understand back to the premise of, is mindfulness making us sick? Yes, and no.
Right.
And the yes part of it is, don't expect these people to enter a space and place that they have never been before, that they don't need social support. They don't need psychological support.
Right.
So mine is, again, with the both and. Use the apps. Use the many apps like ours. We even have Mindful Living Network on the app stores, and we have a beautiful app that takes you and you can meditate for a few minutes. They have stress tips, all kinds of things. Our podcasts. But also, if you're going to do that and issues start to come up, you have to have a counselor. You have to have a psychologist or some kind of coach, some support system that will be there for you. And the reason that I like a yoga or a meditation class is these are experienced people that are used to things coming up. For an example, after I meditated for many years, I got into yoga. And I thought, oh man, I don't have anything to worry about. I just need to do some stretches.
Yeah.
Well, I've got news for you. Some of the stretches that happened when my chest was exposed or my body was in certain positions, I'd get hysterical and go into huge breakdowns because the body positions,
it just
trauma,
exposes vulnerability.
Yeah, exactly. And the trauma that had been stored in me from such being beaten so severely and, literally knocked out so many times in my life from my father. I had post-concussive syndrome. I mean, so my horrors came up, but all of this mindfulness and my commitment to it changed all. I didn't have to worry about the potatoes floating up or the carrots floating up.
Right.
Or the temperature being turned up or down or whatever was going on in my life. It's like a taproot It's your security blanket. It's your, do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
your sun and your moon and your stars, your higher power, if you want to call it that, your God, whatever you want to call it, was the mindfulness stuff. So in this, anyway, to poo-poo it, because a lot of the research and a lot of the articles that I found were, don't do this. Somebody wanted to commit suicide. Somebody wanted to do this. Well, that's, again, both end. That's true.
Yeah, those feelings were probably there already. It's just that now you have a conduit through which you can address those feelings. I think, is it something that you recommend when someone gets into it, you do it in a group type setting, or is it an individual thing, or is it a case by case dependent upon the person? You know,
I think like it's different doors that I got through into the group thing.
Right.
Which again was huge for me because I had issues with family too. I was terrified of being in big groups like that.
Right.
Part of the reason I was doing the money and the stuff that I did, the way I did it, I was in control. I could be in front of 500 people telling them about cost-benefit ratio or regression analysis and money.
Yeah.
And I was in control. But when you're in a group like that, it was wonderful because it brought up my family issues too, because that's a family.
Yeah.
So I think the best way for me would suggest, and again, you can go through Al-Anon, go through AA, you can go through church groups, you can go through all kinds of different venues that don't cost a lot of money. Start your own group.
Yeah.
But with a facilitator, but mine is I truly believe the community is the best way. Now, I'm not in a community now, but I did it for so many years, for so long.
Right.
That, 40 years now, 38 years, that I do it myself on a regular basis. I would love a community. I haven't been able to find a new one. I hope to soon. But the point is once you have the infrastructure, the taproot, you can, it's kind of like lily pads or islands. You can skip to different ones.
Around.
And and sometimes you can stay on your boat between the islands because you have your practices so ingrained from your teachers.
Of course, yeah.
Through the years. But I really think it's important too because I wrote a blog recently on just vicious attacks on what the professional teachers are calling mindfulness.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's like McDonald's.
I wanted to hear about this because whenever you put Mick in front of anything, it immediately piques my curiosity. All right, so Mick mindfulness.
And you see it's like a slap, right?
Yeah.
Mick mindfulness.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought, I wonder what this is. So then I was reading just a plethora of all of this just information on how terrible it is and who do these people think they are with these 5-minute apps like, I won't mention any, but, meditating for 5 minutes or 7 minutes and who these people think they are.
Yeah.
These people need to be in a class. Well, this is back to my both and judgment too, by the way.
Yeah.
And the different folks, different strokes for different folks is I went bananas and wrote a really aggressive article on how dare you appoint yourself as a guru, as the genius on this, as the be-all, know-all.
Yeah.
Everybody cannot afford to, economically, time-wise, energy-wise, go sit down to a class with a teacher for an hour twice a week or once a week.
Yeah.
They've got to do what they can do. They're raising families. They're busy. They're in school. So this drive-through quote is what they were making fun of is a beginning. It's a baby step. It's walking. It may lead you like me into a whole new world. It may not. It may be, if you don't have traumas like I do, it may be what you need. I can't judge that for you.
Right.
But how dare you take down, and we also have a term now that's in vogue after mindfulness called micro-mindfulness.
Okay.
I like it. It doesn't have the negative connotation.
Yeah, because mindfulness has kind of like a sinister
But
kind of...
I want to throw in a plug, and not just because I worked with McDonald's, which I did. They've been a client. But I do love McDonald's. And people, I'm a pescatarian. I haven't eaten meat in 30 years. And you know me, I'm a health conscious freak. But I love my fish sandwich with some French fries.
They're so good.
With my unsweet iced tea.
Ooh, girl.
And then apple pie, of course.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, and I don't do it every day. I do it once every 2 months, once every 3 months. But baby, when I do it, I have ketchup and tartar sauce all over my face, down my throat, between my fingers.
It's an experience.
It is an experience, really.
Whenever you get it, do you go through the drive-thru and then just eat it in the parking lot?
No. You have to get in line. and get all excited looking at the menu.
Yeah.
This is part of the mindfulness experience.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh my God, I am actually in a McDonald's and it's been 2 months. I've been eating at my vegetarian restaurants for every day.
And you deserve that
And
filet of
exactly.
fish.
And then you get up, and so I'm almost like they stare at me like I'm some kind of, Unabomber or something because I can't talk. And I'm like, I want a fish sandwich. And then they go, would you like the meal? Or would you like just the sandwich?
I would like the meal, thank you. Large fry.
Oh my God, he's with me. And then a large tea.
Yeah.
Upsize me, please.
Upsize.
So then you just kind of wait, and then it happens, and then you sit down, and it is like the coolest. Also, the social environment at McDonald's. I love it. I mean, there are every kind.
There's some colorful folks.
Hello, honey. Hello.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, from the rich, to the poor, to the homeless, to whatever. I love it.
They really do get everybody in the doors there, don't they?
I'm telling you, teenagers on their way to class. So I get a corner booth or whatever, and I just sit there.
People watch.
Oh, I
already know that you're doing
Get my
that.
sandwich.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, the reason I'm telling this McDonald's stories is quit negatively saying, like McMindfulness, okay? Don't take down my people.
Yeah.
Okay. Plus, I was one of 7 kids, and if you ever got to go to McDonald's to get a sandwich, it was like, I can't even tell you. It would be like the greatest experience of my lifetime. So in this mini mindfulness micro mindfulness movement, it's all about, to me, it's kind of like a baseball field where you have first, second, and third base.
Okay.
That during your busy day, it's like a baseball field of going to work, kids, whatever you're doing. Mm-hmm. Touch the bases, okay? Don't stay at home plate. Go to first base, 5 minutes. You may want to go into one of these apps and have a 5-minute meditation, or do something like listen to the ocean for 5 minutes, or listen to birds chirp. Some people like cats purring, of course, which I do. But whatever it is for the 5 minutes.
Right.
And then for the next, go to the second base, maybe a couple hours later, and go outside, sit under a tree and ask her what she thinks.
I loved that part because you let me read kind of like the beginning part of that copy, and that was, I think it was at the end of it, but it was like literally just touch a tree. And I loved that. And I want you to know I touched a tree before I came here today. Yeah, it was kind of like a sad little tree that had just been pruned down too much by the landscaper people outside my apartment, but we had a connection, that tree and I. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for including that in that publication.
And the tree, and I call that particular tip is called Lean on Me. Right?
Lean on me. Oh, yeah, Lean on me.
Yeah,
lean that was so
on
great.
me
Yeah.
when you're not strong.
And I'll be your friend. Okay.
Oh, help together we can do this one. Carry on. And she can take it. She's lived through hurricanes and storms and droughts, and she's got, God forbid, if you cut her and you look at the circles of her life, you can tell the lean years, you can tell the healthy years. There's a taproot way, way down deep.
Oh, yeah.
The ancients, when I was teaching world religions and studying world spiritualities, they have a thing called dryads, that this knock on wood. Remember the old go knock on wood? How that came was the ancients.
Oh, you're talking about the superstition thing?
Yeah, the superstition, knock on wood.
Yeah.
That phrase came from, they used to go to the oak trees and knock on them, and dryads lived inside of them, which were little fairies. So if you were upset, concerned, didn't know whether to marry somebody or what to do for a job or whatever, you sat under the tree, you sat under her and totally trusted the wisdom of this tree. And you knock on it, and the dryads are in there and they answer you. So you believe the fairies are in there. And so then you leave it with the tree.
I never knew that.
And it will be answered, and the conclusion will come to you. So the sacred tree, and also think of it, the leaves provide shade in the winter. They provide cover for birds and for their nests to be protected and new life to come from. So they also help with the erosion of our world. So anyway, just sit under a tree, lean on it, and go, I just need 5 minutes of total mindful surrender into you because I can trust you.
Yeah.
I have that confidence. And Another big one is making sure. I believe this is a micro mindfulness thing too. Give a compliment to somebody. I'm telling you, when I'm off, sometimes I'll just go to Publix or Kroger and go through, and I'll be down the vegetable aisle and see somebody looking sideways, and I'll go, "Do you know that is the neatest purse? I just love your purse." And you watch this person who's got a sour look or looks sad or whatever, and
Yeah.
go, "Really?" And I go, "Yeah, it's really cool. I love that purple." And then they'll go, and then they might tell you a story about purple.
Right.
Or that,
Or the bag, or whatever.
or my daughter,
Yeah.
or my daughter gave me this purse, and she's been dead for a year. I'm very serious. You don't know what is going to come up. Give somebody a compliment. I especially like it in the checkout aisle of any, because everybody's ticked, everybody's in a hurry.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
you get behind somebody, and then they either write a check or they start paying with cash and put the pennies and quarters on the thing, and I want to kill them.
Yeah.
So those are great times to compliment somebody around you and go, "Oh, those are beautiful radishes you chose," or "I like your shoes,"
Yeah.
or "Why did you pick out that particular magazine? That's very interesting." But anyway, my point about a compliment is you experience the joy of giving a compliment. You are giving some kindness to someone, and you're awakening them out of their sleep. And also, it's an unbelievably kind way to live. And another thing is another mindfulness, a micro mindfulness thing is smiling. We actually have science that shows you the zygote muscles in your face.
Yeah.
We actually change our hormones and our brain chemistry when we smile. So exactly. So
You guys can't see me, but I'm smiling like a crazy person right
right,
now.
he is, and he looks pretty. He looks pretty rad. He looks awful. Like get the nets. He's scaring me to death.
Love it.
We live in Atlanta, as you well know, one of the worst commutes, busiest, horrible places. I have a spiritual practice of when I get to a stoplight and I want to flick people off, which you know my personality. I do.
Yeah, she has a tendency.
And I drive like a maniac, which I love to.
I've never driven in the car with you, but I've heard that you do drive like a
Yes, I do
maniac.
drive like a maniac. And I love to drive. It's my passion. So when I get to the stoplight, I always look to the left or the right, and I smile at somebody. And it's just a spiritual practice. Now they give me a nasty look.
Yeah.
They may be suspicious, go to reach for something scary. I don't care. It's something to do at a mall. Just do it as a practice. Don't wait for it to be evoked or see a cute baby. Do these compliment. Do things like the tree, a smiling practice. In your car, do something. When you get to a traffic light, inhale to the count of 4 and exhale to the count of 4 and think of something positive or loving. You can create this infrastructure of mindfulness. And again, they call it micro-mindfulness. I don't even like that term because it kind of circumvents the power of being mindful.
Oh, where it kind of like diminishes the good that can come from it because it's micro, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
I understand micro, macro. Again, I live in a family of scientists and
Right.
all this stuff. I just think that's,
I feel like in a certain way it can almost be, it's like you take 2 hours, an hour twice a week to go to meditation, or throughout every day you have these little 5-minute pick-me-ups of whatever. I feel like for some folks that could be more beneficial, like we've been saying. So not to diminish the micro, not at all. I love
thanks.
that.
Yeah, that is beautiful.
You know?
Because I think, like I told you, the phraseology first was mech mindfulness.
Yeah.
Now they've shifted it to make it more micro mindfulness, which is okay. But let's just stop all the nomenclature and the trying to. I know to chop everything. Here we go with language again, chopping things up. You know, in my training, we don't even use the word mindfulness. Mine is awareness, is what we are taught.
Really?
Of course.
I
In
didn't
all
know
my
that.
training from the beginning, you're taught to become aware. And the more aware you become, then the more choices you make, because you become more aware of the choices
Right.
you're making. And then the product of you making choices is the energy in your experience. You go, oh, I feel better. I feel worse. I feel happy. I feel, so for being under the tree, smiling, complimenting people, the smaller practices that you do, you'll say, wow, I want to do more of that. My life, I'm a happier person. And also remember, you're a chemical soup. You're just one big soup, baby, of chemicals. So every thought, here I go again, every word, every action changes that chemical soup.
Oh, yeah.
So even though it may seem like a small thing, also Heisenberg, one of the physicists who I love, a long time ago, talked about the power of observation. that cells and structures change when we observe them. For an example, putting bacteria in petri dishes or plants, and we can put them in different places, same temperature, same environment, and Bailey and I can look at them and they will grow differently. The cellular structure will change.
Because they're being observed?
They're being observed. So if that is true on a micro, teeny
like
tiny
actual
basis,
microscopic.
then what happens when you sit under a tree and tell it thank you and that I love you? Or you look into someone's eyes and you go, that's a really pretty purple blouse you have on. Or, I like your shoes. Whatever the compliment is, do you know what I mean? Small,
what
smiling
kind of ripple
things.
effect
What's
will
happening?
happen?
Yeah, what is?
Of course.
Because we're finding out all these new dimensions. I mean, it used to be 3 dimensions, 4 dimensions. Now it's infinite numbers. So I really believe, and you know me, I use the old. Of course, you're a music person, obviously. In your training and in your skill set and your college education, is that I think of it like changing radio frequencies from 99.2 to 88.8, that every thought, word, and action you have changes that frequency. It really does. Yeah. And so whether you need that kind of a metaphor, a cellular metaphor, whatever it is, I was turning left on Roxborough onto Lenox Road yesterday, and I swear to God, it was a long light, and I was getting a little nasty because I had some things that phone calls I had to return.
Right.
This is like the longest light in history. And I looked over and I saw these 3 little pansies in the little center island between the things. And I swear to God, they were smiling at me. I mean, you know me. I don't drink, don't do drugs. And I was like, oh my God, I love you guys. I love you. I said, thank you for taking me out of this little nasty, whatever little time construct, Western brain part I'm in.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love you. And how many other people that stop at this stoplight
get to have that same
get to have your
sort of
experience,
break.
and your little tiny life is huge. I don't know. There's millions of people in Atlanta, and God knows how many people near Lenox and Phipps are going by you that are stopped in traffic like I am. And I look over, and you're not only loving me with red and purple and yellow, but my God, your presence. And tears started streaming down my I'm going to cry just thinking about it.
It's crazy.
So I know. So the light turned, and I didn't want to move. I didn't care about the phone calls. And the guy behind me's flicking me off like I always do, honking at me.
Yeah.
And I just
look at the pansies.
I know. I blew kisses at him and went, oh my God. So that's mindfulness. It's micro-mindfulness, whatever you want to call that experience.
Take that time to appreciate that.
Time, guys. This is what it's all about. What if all the tiny little times of our life is where the real magic is, which I believe it is.
Add up.
It's really not. I'm old enough now. I am. I'm older, more mature. I know. I've had an office on the 104th floor of the World Trade Center. I've worked in the White House. I've worked at the United Nations. God bless. I've had the most, being humble, I say this.
Right.
The most magical, unbelievable. I go to a think tank with everything from Supreme Court justices to presidents. I have been, as you well know, ridiculously blessed and honored. That little pansy, my 3 little pansy buddies
much to
are
you.
still, look, I almost cried, are still in my heart from yesterday.
Yeah.
And when it got cold and I got up this morning and it was almost 30 degrees and the wind was blowing, I thought about those 3 friggin' pansies. And I just went, my kids, those are my kids. Are they warm?
So it's like, if you can take that attitude, if you can take that appreciation and just pay a compliment to a stranger in the candy bar aisle, what would that do? What would that cause? I think that's such a great idea.
And it has to be sincere.
Oh,
I mean,
of course.
so
yeah.
So if you do, like somebody who's got a payday, you notice I'm going to mention my favorites, or almond M&Ms or whatever. It comes from your heart. So, and once you start doing it, my daughter went to Georgetown. Brittany did her residency up there after she finished medical school, and there was a guy up there called Compliment Man. And he used to be at DuPont Circle and hang around. And there was this wonderful African-American black guy. And he was known as Compliment Man. And that's all he did all day.
He'd just dish them out?
Yeah, he was like a homeless man.
I love that.
I loved him. He was a homeless guy, literally, that lived around, and he would walk up to you and give compliments. He was infamous, and I loved him. Every time I saw him.
That's so awesome.
And we called him Compliment Man, and that was what he was known as. And I thought, by the grace of God, we would sit there and have coffee, Brittany and I, and would watch him and watch the nastiest people, not that nasty people could live in Washington, D.C., Bailey.
Oh, yeah, that seems so far-fetched.
I know. It's okay. Liar, liar, pants on fire. And, preoccupied. Could they be? Could they be brilliant? Could they be control freaks? Could they be? And to watch this soul, this beautiful,
Soften
loving,
them right
soft
up.
soul,
Yeah.
just boom, just like lightning. I would say it was almost like lightning, loving lightning striking them hearts.
Yeah.
And they would smile and stop and be in the presence of love for that
Yeah.
one flash of a second. And you don't know, did they think of it later in the day? Did they do it? Or was it just the grace that touched them that day? So each of us can be that person. We don't have to be the compliment man in Washington, D.C. We don't have to be the wacko woman who stopped yesterday at the stoplight and is still living
But
with
you
the
can
three
be your
pansies
own
in her
version
heart.
of that. You can definitely be
Your own
version
version of that. Yes. And that's
course.
why, we're all in this together. Don't let the big, crazy chaos of the world we live in and everything sweep you away from this magical, magnificent life that you have.
Exactly. Well, guys, we really appreciate you being here today. My name is Bailey, like the Irish cream, and this is the way I see it.
And my name is Dr. Kathleen Hall, and this is the way I see it. Thanks for joining us today. See you next time.
Bye-bye.